On the 1st of June 2001, at a family dinner inside the Narayana Palace in Kathmandu, 9 members of Nepal's royal family were shot dead. The king, the queen, the crown prince. In a single evening, a dynasty that had ruled for more than 2 centuries lost most of its senior line. 7 years later, the monarchy itself was voted out of existence, and the palace where it happened was turned into a museum that anyone can walk through for the price of a ticket. That is one way for a royal family to lose everything. It is not even the most complete, and there is a question worth holding on to the whole way down, because it explains every single case. What actually destroys a royal fortune? It is almost never a bad investment. Number 7. Egypt, the Muhammad Ali dynasty. King Farouk I was, for a time, one of the most conspicuous collectors alive. He amassed one of the greatest coin collections ever assembled, along with jewelry, watches, art and objects, gathered on an industrial scale. In July of 1952, the Free Officers Movement forced him to abdicate. He left Egypt for Italy, and the new government took the collections. Then came the part collectors still talk about. In 1954, the Egyptian government auctioned the royal collection off in Cairo in a sale that ran for days and scattered the material across the world. Farouk died in Rome in 1965, in exile, so the pattern begins here. The objects survived perfectly well. They just stopped belonging to the family, and the state sold them to strangers. Number 6. Portugal, the House of Braganza. On the 5th of October, 1910, a republican revolution ended the Portuguese monarchy. King Manuel II, 20 years old, boarded a yacht and sailed to England. He had been on the throne for 2 years, after his father and older brother were assassinated in the street in Lisbon in 1908. He lived the rest of his life in exile in Twickenham, West London, and died in 1932 at 42. The Crown lands went to the new republic. This is the gentlest failure on the list. The family survived. Descendants still live in Portugal today. But the throne of a global maritime empire, the empire that had reached Brazil, Goa, Macau and Angola, ended with a young man on a boat. Losing the money was the easy part. Number 5 did far worse. Number 5, Nepal. The Shah dynasty. Back to that dinner in 2001. The official inquiry concluded that Crown Prince Dipendra carried out the shootings before turning a weapon on himself. He was technically declared king while unconscious and dying, and reigned for 3 days without ever knowing it. The throne then passed to his uncle, Gyanendra. Gyanendra's reign went badly. In 2005, he dismissed the government and assumed direct power. Mass protests followed. By 2006, his powers were stripped, and on the 28th of May, 2008, Nepal's assembly abolished the monarchy entirely, declaring the country a republic after 240 years of Shah rule. The former king was given 15 days to leave the Narayana Palace. He walked out of the building his family had ruled from, and the state converted it into the Narayana Palace Museum. He was not executed, he was not exiled. He lives in Nepal as a private citizen, and reports over the years have described him retaining significant personal business interests. He kept a fortune. He simply stopped being a king and lost the palace that made the fortune mean anything. And there is a detail about that museum that says everything. Visitors to the Narayana today can walk to the section of the complex where the killings happened. The building where the family lived became a place where members of the public queue up to look at the site of their deaths. The palace did not just change owners, it changed meaning. The Shah dynasty had ruled Nepal since 1768, when Prithvi Narayan Shah unified the country. 240 years of that ended with a vote and a 15-day notice period. Number 4, the Ottomans. The House of Osman. 600 years. At its height, the Ottoman Empire controlled territory across 3 continents, from the Balkans to the Arabian Peninsula to North Africa, and the Sultan held the title of Caliph, the claimed leader of the Muslim world. On the 3rd of March 1924, the new Turkish Republic abolished the Caliphate, and every member of the imperial family was ordered into exile. Not just the Sultan. Everyone. Princes, princesses, children, their citizenship was revoked and their property was seized. What happened to them afterwards is the part that stays with me. Members of one of the most powerful dynasties in world history scattered across Europe and the Middle East, and lived in many documented cases in real hardship. Descendants of emperors working ordinary jobs. Some died in poverty. The exile orders were eventually relaxed. Female members were permitted to return from 1952 and male members from 1974. 50 years is a long time to be locked out of your own country. And consider what was actually confiscated. Topkapi Palace, the seat of the sultans for roughly 4 centuries, with its treasury of emeralds, thrones and relics. Dolmabahce Palace on the Bosphorus, built in the 1850s at enormous expense, containing what is described as one of the largest Bohemian crystal chandeliers in the world. Both became state museums. Millions of tourists now pay to walk through rooms that a single family owned within living memory. That is the recurring image of this entire countdown. The wealth is still there. It is photographed daily. It simply belongs to everyone now, which in practice means it belongs to nobody in the family. So the pattern is sharpening. Egypt lost its collection to an auctioneer. Portugal lost a throne. Nepal lost a throne but kept the money. The Ottomans lost the throne, the money, the property, and the passport. And now stop, because everything above this point was survivable. Every family so far kept their lives. Manuel II reached England. Gyanendra still lives in Kathmandu. The Osman descendants eventually went home. Farouk died in a hotel in Rome, but he died old. The final 3 did not get that. From here, losing everything stops being a financial event and becomes a physical one. A man dying stateless, an emperor sent to a re-education camp, and a family shot in a cellar. Watch how quickly a fortune stops being the most valuable thing a dynasty owns. Number 3. Iran, the Pahlavi dynasty. In January of 1979, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, the Shah of Iran, left the country on what was described as a holiday. He never came back. He had been one of the wealthiest rulers on earth, sitting on Iranian oil at the height of the petrodollar era, and famous for spectacular displays of wealth. The 1971 celebration at Persepolis, marking 2,500 years of Persian monarchy, is still cited as one of the most extravagant parties ever staged. An entire tented city built in the desert, catered from Paris for heads of state from around the world. 8 years later, he was a man without a country. The revolution seized the dynasty's assets inside Iran, and the Pahlavi Foundation, the vehicle holding enormous wealth, was taken over. Some money had been moved abroad and survived. Most of what the family held in Iran did not. And the exile itself was brutal, in a way money could not fix. He was dying of cancer, and country after country declined to take him in for long. Egypt, Morocco, the Bahamas, Mexico, the United States for treatment, Panama, then Egypt again, where he died in July of 1980. The richest monarch of his generation spent his final year looking for a country willing to let him land. Number 2. China, the Qing dynasty, and Puyi. Puyi became emperor of China in 1908 at 2 years old. He abdicated in 1912 at 6, ending more than 2,000 years of imperial rule. Under the initial abdication settlement, he was allowed to keep his title and continue living in the Forbidden City with a large annual subsidy. That lasted 12 years. In 1924, he was expelled from the palace outright. He then made the decision that defines him. He accepted the throne of Manchukuo, the state Japan established in occupied Manchuria, ruling as a figurehead for an occupying power. When the Soviets arrived in 1945, he was captured, held for 5 years, and handed to the People's Republic of China. And then something happened that has no parallel anywhere else on this list. He was placed in a re-education facility for nearly a decade. He was released in 1959 and spent his final years in Beijing working as a gardener at the Botanical Gardens, and later as an editor, living in ordinary accommodation on an ordinary wage. He died in 1967. The Lord of 10,000 years, master of the Forbidden City, ended his life tending plants in the city he had once owned. And if this is the kind of story worth more of, subscribe, because I am working through these dynasties one at a time, the ones who kept it and the ones who lost it. Which leaves number 1, and there is only one possible answer. Number 1. Russia, the House of Romanov. 304 years. At the point of the revolution, the Romanovs were plausibly the wealthiest family on the planet. Their wealth was not a portfolio in the modern sense. It was 1/6 of the world's land surface, along with the mines, the forests, the palaces, and the treasury of an empire. The scale of the personal collection is hard to convey. The Winter Palace, the Catherine Palace with its amber room, and the Fabergé eggs made for the imperial family from 1885 onwards, roughly 50 of them, of which several are still missing today and are among the most sought-after objects in the art world. In March of 1917, Nicholas II abdicated. On the 17th of July, 1918, in a cellar in Yekaterinburg, Nicholas, his wife Alexandra, their 4 daughters and their son were executed. 304 years of dynasty ended in one room in a single night. To grasp what was lost, consider the amber room itself. An entire chamber panelled floor to ceiling in amber, gold leaf and mirrors, given to Peter the Great and installed at the Catherine Palace, so celebrated it was called the 8th wonder of the world. During the Second World War, German forces dismantled it and shipped it out. It has never been found. The room that was rebuilt and unveiled in 2003 is a reconstruction, and the original remains one of the great missing treasures on Earth. That is one room, from one palace, of many. The wealth did not survive them, but it did not simply vanish either. The new Soviet state, desperate for foreign currency, began selling. Imperial jewels were broken up, stones prized out of their settings and sold by weight. Paintings from the Hermitage were quietly sold to Western collectors in the 1930s. The family's treasure was converted into hard currency for the government that had replaced them. There is one detail that captures all of it. When the daughters were killed, they were wearing diamonds and other jewels sewn into their clothing. It has been widely reported that this concealed layer acted briefly as armor. The last physical function of the Romanov fortune was to make the family harder to kill. So, what actually destroys a royal fortune? Look back down the list. Not one of these families was ruined by a bad decision with money. Manuel II did not lose Portugal in a failed venture. The Ottomans did not mismanage a portfolio for 600 years. The Romanovs were not out-invested. Every single one lost everything for the same reason. They lost the political settlement that made their ownership real. The moment the state stopped agreeing that the assets were theirs, the assets stopped being theirs. Not gradually and not negotiably. Overnight. And notice how fast it happens. Not one of these collapses was slow. The Romanovs went from ruling 1/6 of the world's land to a cellar in 16 months. Farouk abdicated in days. Gyanendra was given 15 days to pack. The Ottoman family was ordered out of the country in a single legislative act. There is no case on this list of a royal fortune declining gradually, being eroded by inflation or bad management or lazy heirs. Royal fortunes do not fade, they stop, which puts the surviving monarchies in a very different light. Britain's royal family handed the crown estate to the government in 1760 and kept the throne for 265 more years. Japan's imperial family had its fortune stripped after the war and is still on the throne today, worth a fraction of what the Gulf monarchies hold. They look like the families that gave up the most. On this list, they are the ones who understood the terms. A royal fortune is not owned, it is permitted, and permission can be withdrawn in an evening, at a dinner table in Kathmandu or in a cellar in Yekaterinburg. If this was worth your time, subscribe. Next, I'm counting down the 10 richest families alive today, the ones the permission has not been withdrawn from yet. I'll see you there.